Hello and welcome to this podcast series on the new European General Data Protection Regulations, the GDPR. My name's Steve Lofthouse, a GDPR specialist with the Proceed Group, and in this series we're going to be looking at the various pieces of SAP software that will help companies in their journey to becoming GDPR compliant and maintaining that compliance moving forward. Now, it's important to remember that the GDPR is both mandatory and demonstrable. You have to be compliant and you also have to be able to demonstrate compliance. All of the software tools that we're going to be talking about in this series are going to enable you to do that. In this particular podcast, we're going to be looking at SAP's Information Lifecycle Management software. Now, ILM is a software component that enables you to manage your data in a more efficient way. ILM will manage the movement of your data out of your business systems and into your long-term archival storage system. It will manage the blocking of data. It will manage data discovery, data deletion, and it will also manage retention policies for data within your system. Now, the GDPR has enforced the rights of data subjects with regards to their data. Data subjects have a right of access, a right of rectification, a right of erasure, and a right to the restriction of processing. So, if we talk through some of those rights and give some examples of situations and then map them across into the functionality of SAP's ILM software. Now, it's worth saying, just before we dive into that if you are a company that uses SAP's Human Capital Management component, the HCM component, you have a free license from SAP to use SAP ILM on your HCM data, which is always worth knowing. So, okay, first off, data subjects have a right to access their own data from any controller who processes that data. So, I could, as a data subject, submit a subject access request to a company for a copy of all the data that you hold about me, and you would have 1 month to respond to that request, either furnishing me with all the data that you hold on me or supplying me with a reason as to why you are taking longer than a month to furnish me with that data. And for that you can charge me nothing. So in the past you used to be able to charge for subject access requests, and that has been removed in the GDPR. So you cannot charge me to access my own data. The data that you store about me is going to be held across a number of systems. You may keep data on me within your business system because that data is in use. You may have data on me within your archival system because you've moved that data across, it's no longer needed. You may have unstructured data. Maybe you have some PDF copies of letters that I wrote to you because I like to write letters every now and again, and you've stored them in an open text store, an unstructured store. Maybe you're plugged into my social media and you're downloading and storing all these marvelous tweets that I'm making about your products. So when I submit a subject access request, you need to be able to discover my data across all of those systems. You need to be able to discover my data across all of those systems, the business, the archival, the unstructured, the structured, and you need to be able to pull all that together and furnish me with it, and do so in less than a month. Now that's quite a task. It's quite a task within an SAP system, but when you think that modern business is going to be using various different IT systems, maybe you're using an SAP systems for your core business functionality, but then you've also got web servers because you have an e-commerce functionality and you have websites and things like this. It does get to be quite an onerous task. So you're going to need a software component that's capable of interrogating all of these systems, of pulling data from all of those systems, and that's where SAP's ILM comes in, because it's capable of doing that. It's capable of going out into all these different systems and moving and discovering the data within them. So we can discover the data, and we can fulfill these subject access requests. Now, one of the other rights that I have as a data subject is the right to data rectification, as they call it. So I have the right to ensure that my data is accurate, and a data controller, has an onus placed upon them that they should endeavour to ensure by all reasonable means that the data they hold is accurate and up to date. Now you can see here that some of these rights are kind of reinforcing. So in order to act upon the right to have my data rectified, have inaccuracies rectified, I need the right to discover data about me, to see a copy of all the data that's held about me. So you can see that some of these rights are kind of self-reinforcing. So I have the right to ensure that the data held about me is accurate, and I can make corrections to inaccurate data. I can request that companies correct errors within the data. Now, it is beholden upon the controller to push any corrections to my data down to any external processes. So as a company, if you use an external company to process data, to run analyses and things like this, then it is up to you, the controller, to ensure that these corrections are passed on to the processor, and that the processor corrects their copy of the data, their version of the data. So again, how are you going to discover the data that needs to be corrected when it's going to sit across numerous systems? SAP ILM. SAP ILM is going to help you discover this data and make the corrections to it. Now, it could be that you can't correct that data. So let's say, for example, that the data point that I wanted correcting was my sex. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you had me listed as female, and I wanted you to list me as male. What you as a company may say that, well, we can't actually do that at the minute because we need more evidence that you are male. So please can you supply us with additional evidence. In the meantime, whilst I get that evidence for you and supply it to the company to have that change made, I could request that my data is blocked for processing on the grounds that it is inaccurate and I am obtaining information or evidence to have it corrected. So as a data subject, I can request that my data is blocked for processing on the grounds that it is inaccurate and I am in the process of obtaining evidence to show that. So you need a means to stop data being processed, to block data from being processed. And again, that is where SAP's ILM solution is going to come in. It has the capability, it has the functionality within it, and we'll talk a little bit more about how it does that in a moment, but it has the capability within it to block data from being processed. Okay, so as well as being able to block data from being processed, I also have the right to have my data deleted or blocked as appropriate. Now, there are a few kind of caveats around that. You, as a controller, you can't delete my data if there is a legal precedent for holding it. So, for example, medical records have to be held for X number of years, purchase records have to be held for tax purposes. There are legal reasons why data has to be held beyond the point of interacting with a consumer, beyond the kind of sole business interaction. But outside of those legal reasons, I have the right to request that my data is deleted. And that may be that I'm withdrawing consent. So it could be that I am withdrawing my consent for you to send me marketing emails. So I withdraw my consent for you to send me marketing emails. Can you delete all data from the system? And you have to comply with that. You would have to comply with that within a month. And you have to be able to prove that you've complied with that. So we're back to this idea that compliance with the GDPR is both mandatory and demonstrable. You have to comply and you have to demonstrate that you are complying. You have to be able to provide audit points that show that data, that all of my data was discovered and removed from your systems in a safe and secure manner. Okay, so I also have the right to object, as they call it, to the processing of my data if the processing of my data leads to disproportionate results. Okay, so you could imagine a situation where a company was analysing 10 years of a data subject's credit history, 10 years of credit history. And the first 5 years of that credit history were abysmal. The next 2 years got a little bit better, but the final 3 years of that credit history are absolutely fantastic because that data subject now has a very good job, they won the lottery, they can purchase whatever they want. If you processed that subject's data and you looked across the whole of the 10 years, that would give you quite a negative picture of that consumer because it's only within the last 3 years that they've become financially buoyant, shall we say. So the consumer, the data subject, has the right to object to the processing of their data because it leads to a disproportionate result. It leads to them receiving a poor credit score when in actual fact they're a millionaire, and if you take that into account, well, their credit score is quite good. So they can object, which means that their data needs to be blocked for processing on that specific basis. Maybe it's a specific process that a company is running that the data needs to be blocked against. So maybe credit scoring. So we can specify blocks and prevent data from being processed, but we can prevent data from being processed in specific ways. We can prevent data being used for specific processes. And I also have the right to, as a data subject, I also have the right to object to my data being used for direct marketing. And this is this idea that you can opt into mailing lists and marketing lists, and you can also opt out of them. I can give consent for my data to be processed, but I can also withdraw consent. And that again requires that the data is blocked or is deleted from the system. And again, we have to discover the data and then block it, delete it, and do so in a manner which is secure, safe, and demonstrable. So there are quite a few rights there which, if you looked at a modern corporate IT landscape, are quite tricky to enact. or comply with from a corporate point of view. Because you're going to have your kind of central business system, and in our case we're talking about SAP, so we've got our kind of central business SAP business system. Then we've got our SAP archiving system where we're pulling business data out and popping it into the archiving system. We've also got this open text store system where we're storing copies of handwritten communication, where we're storing scans of various documents. We're quite a modern company, so we're also plugged into our customers' social media, and we're pulling down copies of the tweets and their Facebook posts, and we're storing that as unstructured data in a system. So we've got quite a few systems that we need to navigate across, that we require visibility across, that we need to be able to interrogate and discover data within. And SAP's ILM, Information Lifecycle Management software, is a system that can navigate all these different systems, that can give us access to that data. So the way it works is that we create business rules. We create some business rules that tell the Information Lifecycle Management component when to move data from our business system into our archiving system. So we create these business rules that tell the software when to move data, at what point in the kind of business life cycle does that data need to be archived, and which data to move. So ILM is going to move data out of the business system in a safe and secure way. So this principle of secure by default and design, which is also written into the GDPR, we're already adhering to that because moving data out of the business system and into the archiving system is being done in a secure manner. The GDPR also puts forward this idea that we should have data minimization. We should only keep data in a form which permits identification for no longer than is necessary, and we should only keep the minimum amount of data. So within these business rules, we can specify which data we want to keep. And the ILM software, the Information Lifecycle Management software, as well as moving data out of the business system and into the archive system, will also delete unnecessary data. So data that we don't want to keep in the archiving system, the ILM software is going to delete that in a safe and secure way, and in a way which is auditable. So for a start, we can already prove to the Information Commissioner that we are moving data across into our archive system in a secure way, and we are only keeping the minimum amount of data. Now, the ILM software, the ILM component creates archiving objects. So it's pulling data together from all these different systems, from all these different tables within our databases, and creating an archiving object which comprises all of those data points. And then it's applying business rules to those archiving objects. So we could say that this archiving object is finance data, and there are Sarbanes-Oxley rules, there are tax rules around how long we need to keep that data for, and we can specify those time periods within these business rules. So we can ensure that data which has to be stored for legal reasons, tax data, medical records, employment history, that kind of thing, we can ensure that that kind of data is kept for the legally mandated period and then deleted in a safe and secure and provable manner. Now, these archiving objects, they can also be tagged with various pieces of metadata that allow us to block the processing of that data. So it's metadata tags that we apply to these archiving objects, which prevent the data being processed for the purposes of marketing, that prevent the data from being utilized because the accuracy of it is under dispute. So we can tag data to prevent it from being processed. Now, maybe in a worst case scenario, we're subject to a legal case. Well, we can use SAP's ILM software to discover data associated with a legal case, and we can tag that data with what we call a legal hold. So, should a business rule indicate that the time period has expired and an archiving package needs to be deleted, if that archiving package is subject to a legal hold, because there's a legal case, well, the software will not delete that data because there's a legal hold in place. If, as a data subject, I put forth or my right to have data deleted, have data about me deleted, but that data is subject to a legal requirement that it is retained. So you could envisage that I may request that an employer, a previous employer, deletes all the data that they hold about me. The SAP ILM software could enact that deletion request across all of these systems, but there are employment laws in place which require employers to retain employment history, and the SAP ILM software will be aware of that, and so it will decline the request to delete my data because there is a legal requirement that that data is retained for X amount of time. Now, when X amount of time has passed, the data will be deleted. And the Information Lifecycle Management solution will ensure that that data is deleted in a manner which is auditable, so we can prove to the Information Commissioner that the data is gone. It's going to be deleted in a safe and secure way so that the data is non-recoverable. So we're ensuring the kind of protections of our customers and the rights of the data subjects all the way through from the point that the data was generated all the way through to the point that the data was deleted. So that's SAP Information Lifecycle Management. I hope you found that useful. There are more of these podcasts coming up. As well as these particular podcasts, we do have a blog series running, and that blog series is aligned to the Information Commissioner's 12 steps, and we've used our knowledge and our experience of working with SAP and working with SAP data and our experience of GDPR compliance projects to produce a blog series which has more meat on the bones, which is about helping companies on that pathway to becoming GDPR compliant. So I would encourage you to check out that particular blog series. My name's Steve Lofthouse. Thank you very much. If you would like to read more about the steps you should be taking to become GDPR compliant, we have a series of blog posts designed to help you do just that. The easiest way to find them is to use your favourite search engine and search for proceedgroup.com GDPR.